all of the people receiving recognition are making a ton of money too. Usually anyway. I mean, Zoe basically says that at one point in the episode. She says, "I'm already rich, I'm already famous. Awards are all we have." Kind of goes to show that no matter how much money or fame you amass, human nature seemingly always wants more.
Kinda greedy.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of The Rank. I'm John, and today we're going to be ranking another episode of The Studio. The premise of this whole thing is to figure out what sitcom is the best of all time by going through every episode and ranking them and averaging them out to figure out which one is the best overall. Now, if you're enjoying these episodes, or if you're just a fan of The Studio and you enjoy consuming content about it, please subscribe and or follow. Like the episodes, comment, email us, emails at the bottom. Please also consider becoming a patron on our Patreon site at patreon.com/TheRankPodcast. Now today we're ranking the 8th episode of the first season of The Studio, titled The Golden Globes. It was written by Alex Gregory and directed by Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg. And since this is a new series, I avoid spoilers for it. I know it's been out for, a couple months at this point, but still want to give people a chance to see it. So let's get into it, starting with the potent notables. So we get a bunch of cameos in this, as we typically do, one of which is Adam Scott, who claims that he slept on Sal Saperstein's couch. Well, in fact, Adam Scott indeed crashed on Ike's couch, Ike Barinholtz's couch, in 2001. Adam actually shared a photo on his Instagram account of him and Ike Barinholtz on said couch. He actually captioned it, "Me and Sal, circa 2001. That's cute stuff. So let's talk about another cameo, Zoe Kravitz's cameo. Now, she said she was playing a, quote, more psychotic version of herself. She also claimed that she's a big fan of Rogen and Goldberg and that she was excited to take the meeting about being in the show. Quote, "I hadn't read anything, and I also didn't even really know how many guest spots they were planning on having and who they were going to get. It was just really about loving the thing they were wanting to explore in terms of filmmaking and the industry and where we're at right now, and I thought it was really thought-provoking," end quote. And about the character, though, she said, "I would like to believe that I'm not this person that desperately wants an award, but there is this interesting thing where obviously if you're campaigning for an award, in order to even kind of be nominated, you do have to participate a certain amount, which means it's something that you want, which is okay. But it's funny how people do pretend like they don't care at all when you do have to care a certain amount to even be considered." So I think that kind of humble game that we like to play, of course, there's elements of all of us that want to win, that want to be the best. And so while I do think I was channeling hopefully a person that is a little bit more psychotic than I am, I do think that we all have parts of us that do want to win and are embarrassed to let that part be seen. And I thought it was a cool thing to really play both sides of that, end quote. I thought that was a pretty cool quote from Zoe. But those are the potent notables. Let's go to the episode overview. The story of this one? Well, the story is Matt Remick is still pathetic. The entire episode is about Matt's desire to be thanked in an acceptance speech, especially since he has to see Ted Sarandos, who's the head of Netflix, get thanked over and over again by other winners. The show posits that the only recognition that studio heads get is whether they get a thank you at an award show. It feels a little self-indulgent. I mean, they don't say how much money Matt makes, but it's enough to afford a mansion and multiple old expensive cars. Kind of feels like you're being paid enough to not worry about them. Although, as I say that, all of the people receiving recognition are making a ton of money too. Usually anyway. I mean, Zoe basically says that at one point in the episode. She says, "I'm already rich, I'm already famous. Awards are all we have." Kind of goes to show that no matter how much money or fame you amass, human nature seemingly always wants more.
Kinda greedy.
Matt's neediness feels pretty unbecoming of a studio head, and I find it hard to believe that he would have gotten that job based on the way he acts. That being said, it makes for a fun episode to watch him squirm, and you do end up feeling bad for him, actually. The highlight, though, is Sal. He really gets his moment in this episode. And Patty's back, so it's always good to have Catherine O'Hara stealing scenes. No Quinn in this episode. So this episode is setting up award season. We're taking a look at the behind the scenes of the Golden Globes. It's interesting, though, they're talking about the Hollywood Foreign Press, because they don't own the Globes anymore. Makes me sort of wonder when this is supposed to be taking place, because up until those lines where they mentioned the Hollywood Foreign Press, I assumed it was like an alternate version of now, like present moment. Maybe it's a few years ago, I don't know. Anyway, we see how the studio heads want recognition, how it matters where you get seated, how the artists say they don't want to win, but they really do. Going so far as to promote yourself and your movie to the judges for weeks and months beforehand. It sort of establishes the seeming hypocrisy of it, but it also shows that while they may all feel disingenuous, there is an authenticity to the feelings and excitement. I was surprised by how much I was empathizing with Matt by the end of the episode. You start out feeling kind of annoyed by this petulance and neediness, but then you can't help but feel for him. Like, is it so hard to just thank him? What we need to talk about, though, is how they pulled out all the stops in getting cameos for this episode. It's a pretty impressive list. They even chose people to win awards that felt. We had Lucia Aniello, Paul Downs, Quinta Brunson, Aaron Moriarty, Anthony Starr, Ted Sarandos, Gene Smart, Rami Youssef, Adam Scott, Zoe Kravitz, Zack Snyder, and Aaron Sorkin. And I think I might have missed a couple. I mean, and that's a lot. And on top of all that, Rhea Perlman voices Matt's mom. So if you like the show just for the cameos, this episode was probably the peak. Well, let's see if the cameos helped with the rank.
A rank.
The rank is where I rank the episode based on 5 categories: story, acting, dialogue, episode coherence, and character relatability. I rank it on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being the worst, 5 being the best. And then we have a laugh counter where I tally up the amount of times that the episode made me laugh out loud. 1 point per laugh out loud gets added to the score. The first category is story, and I gave story a 4.5. It's a really good story, basically the inside of an award show. They tend to make the stories really tight for this show, and I usually love them for it. I did find myself wishing that we could have shown more of the politicking leading up to this, though. The schmoozing and stuff that has to be done to get these awards. I think that they mention it, but they don't show it. I would have liked to have seen it. It also felt like the premise was a little shallow. I'm not complaining. I'm just explaining why I didn't give it a 5. It's really good. So the next category is acting, which I give a 4.75. The acting continues to be excellent. Seth Rogen has really become a versatile actor, it seems. Just pretty cool. And there's a depth to Matt Remick that you might not necessarily expect going into this. The same depth is missing a little bit from Sal Saperstein, which is why this isn't a 5. It's almost like Seth Rogen has become such a good actor, it almost shows that Ike Barinholtz isn't up to the same level. And I'm not bashing Ike Barinholtz here because I think he's really funny and he's great in this, but it does feel like Seth Rogen is just that much higher above him in terms of acting. Anyway, let's go to dialogue, which is the next category. I gave that a 5, and here it finally is. So if you've been watching all of the studio episodes, that all the rankings we've done, you've known that I haven't given a 5 for dialogue because I kept being like, well, it just doesn't make me laugh enough. But this is my first 5 for dialogue. Now, the previous week I did give it a 4.85, so it was really close. And I was saying if it just could get me a few more laughs, it would be there. Well, the laughs arrived this week. Still not crazy high, but definitely high enough that it's time to say that the dialogue is really incredibly well done and well timed. So now we go on to episode coherence, which I also gave a 5. Making a tight, shallow story means you don't need much to have great coherence. Even so, that doesn't detract from the fact that they nailed it, as they so often do. They really just don't have wasted moments here. Everything is a build, and most everything is referenced later. It's a really well-developed show. So let's go to the last category, which is character relatability, which I also gave a 5. At first, I thought I wasn't going to be able to relate with Matt, but they brought me around. Sal doesn't have to express much but joy in this episode, but who can't relate to joy, right? Honestly, if you can't, then it's kind of sad. I can also appreciate the tightrope that Zoe has to walk to want the award, but not show that you want it. It all worked for me. I thought it was really good. So that brings us to the laugh counter, and I think it's going to be higher than it usually is for the studio, as I mentioned before, because I gave a 5 to dialogue. It was 15, which is not crazy high, but that's pretty high. It's higher than it's been, and it's definitely going to help the ranking of the episode. So the total for this episode is a 39.25, which makes it a holy grail episode. So close to a meaning of life episode, only 0.75 away. I think it's going to get there in one of these next 2 episodes. But that puts the series average at a 32.7, which means it continues to be, I'd watch it again. So thanks for listening, everybody. If you'd like to see a list of our episode series rankings, you can do that on our website, therankpodcast.com. Remember to subscribe, review, and comment, and please consider supporting us on our Patreon site at patreon.com/therankpodcast, where you can get access to all the archived episodes. But I will leave you with this. You know why I've always liked the Golden Globes? Because unlike the Oscars and the Emmys, it gives out trophies that seem to really appreciate my physique.
Huh?
Because I'm round like a globe.
Self-deprecating joke? Is that what that was?
That's the joke. Adam actually shared a photo.
Cut! Take 3.
He actually I can't talk.